So, the G20 summit, held in New Delhi, has come to an end. In general, this year can be confidently called one of the most unsuccessful for the West. The West, led by the United States, continues to suffer defeat not only on the battlefield in Ukraine, but also in the international arena. After the crushing blow from the BRICS countries, the West hoped to somehow affect the countries of the Global South at the G20 summit and thereby preserve the remnants of its influence on the world stage. However, the Western countries have once again failed. Let me remind you that G20 was created by Western globalists in September 1999. In the second half of the 90s, the United States saw how Asian countries began to rapidly gain weight in the global economy. This caused concern in Western countries, as the rapid strengthening of the Asian region's economy could give autonomy and independence to Asian countries in the international arena. And this was the main reason for the creation of the format of G20. The United States, with the help of the G20, sought to control and influence the countries of the South and East. However, over time, the newly strengthened Russia began to destroy the globalists' plans. Moscow made it clear in every possible way to the countries of the Global South that the G20 is an instrument of influence of Western globalists, and that this format does not give any rights and advantages to the countries of the Global South. The only ones who benefited from the G20 were the United States and other Western countries. G20 completely discredited itself and showed its incapacity, pursuing only the interests of the United States and accepting the agenda of the West. Chinese leader Xi Jinping also began to show his disdain for the G20. He, like his Russian counterpart, also did not come to this event. Thus, Russia and China have made it clear to the countries of the Global South that it is much more efficient and profitable to develop relations in the format of BRICS or Shanghai Cooperation Organization. At the same time, it is worth noting that the leaders of all Western countries came to the G20. However, the speeches of Western leaders at this summit were unconvincing, and nothing to be impressed or to be remembered. As a result, the positions of the G20 countries diverged, and the final declaration turned out to be quite weak from the point of view of international law. All this made Moscow very happy, as this summit showed that the West had finally lost its influence on the countries of the Global South, and the United States was no longer a hegemon. Moreover, Washington has weakened so much that the countries of the Global South have also begun to openly oppose the unipolar world. The fact that at the G20 summit, they rejected the US attempt to force non-Western countries to condemn Russia because of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, indicates that Washington has finally lost its influence around the world. Even Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov paid attention to this. In particular, he stated that the G20 has begun to experience internal reform, which is a sign that this format has begun to approach its end. Thus, the Western globalists began to lose another lever of pressure, with which they exerted pressure on the countries of the Global South. All this is certainly another victory for Putin, who has been painstakingly fighting against Western globalists and their unipolar system since 1999.